Today, we're diving deep into a realm that's going to twist your understanding of how the world around you works, but in the best way possible. Ready for a wild ride? We're blending neuroscience, mathematics, and social science to show you something crucial: why you belong here and how you're connected to everyone else, even people you've never met. By the end of this, we hope you'll not only understand that connection, but also grasp the immense power your mind holds over your brain. It's common for us to talk about the mind and brain as if they're the same thing, right? We use the terms interchangeably, as if there's no real difference between them. But here's the thing: your brain is a physical organ that we can study, operate on, and observe through science. The mind, on the other hand, is more elusive. Where is it? Is it just neurons firing in your brain? Or is it something more? At first glance, it seems like the brain controls the mind. After all, thoughts and feelings originate from the brain, right? But if that's true, why does it sometimes feel like the mind has to step in and take charge, especially when our brain is reacting automatically in ways that don't serve us? Who's really in control here? Let's break it down. The mind works through the brain. The brain gathers data from the world around us, sounds, sights, experiences, and then sends that data to the mind. The mind processes this information, decides what to do with it, and sends commands back to the brain. In this way, the brain follows the mind's orders. You can think of it like using Google. You search for information, and depending on how you search, Google returns specific results. You then choose what to do with that information. But just as Google results can be manipulated, so can the brain's data. What's fascinating is that there's always a tiny delay between when your brain gathers data and when you respond. That split-second delay is crucial. It's where the mind steps in to decide what to do next. And the more you shorten that gap, the harder it becomes to control your emotions or actions, making it seem like you're being driven by automatic responses. This is exactly why meditation has become such a big deal, even in scientific communities that once scoffed at its benefits. Neuroscientists now recognize that meditation widens that gap, giving your mind more time to control how you respond, rather than letting the brain's automatic reactions take over. So let's clarify. The brain is a physical organ, something we can touch and see. The mind, however, is a form of energy that isn't visible or tangible. It exists outside of what we can measure directly, which is probably why it's so hard for us to grasp. The mind creates energy through thinking, feeling, and making decisions. Without the mind's energy, the brain would just be a lump of tissue. Here's something that might surprise you. Thoughts aren't just random, floating ideas. They have a physical structure. They're made of proteins and occupy space in the brain. The more you focus on a particular thought, the stronger the connections between neurons become. That's why certain thoughts can dominate your mind and influence other areas of your life. This ability to reshape your brain through thought is known as neuroplasticity. In one fascinating study, researchers at UCLA, led by Dr. Daniel Siegel, brought together 40 experts from various fields: neuroscience, psychology, anthropology, and more, to try and define the mind. They came up with something pretty profound. The mind, they concluded, fits the definition of a complex system in mathematics. A complex system is one that's open, meaning it can influence things beyond itself. It's also chaotic, meaning that while things might seem random, there are underlying patterns, feedback loops, and adaptations. Finally, it's nonlinear, which means small changes can lead to huge impacts. Think of the butterfly effect. What does this mean for the mind? Well, it tells us that the mind is self-organizing. There's a kind of order that naturally arises from what might look like chaos. When there's enough energy, this self-organization happens spontaneously. It doesn't need some external force to control it. Despite all the chaos, the mind is capable of being flexible, coherent, and stable. Even though thousands of thoughts and experiences are constantly racing through your mind, the energy your mind sends to your brain to perform actions is remarkably stable and organized. When that energy becomes disorganized, it can manifest as mental health challenges. This self-organization doesn't just happen on an individual level either. It also applies to how we, as a society, interact with one another. Now, here's where things get really interesting. The experts at UCLA came up with a definition of the mind that's a bit of a mouthful, but it's powerful. The mind is the emergent self-organizing process, both embodied and relational, that regulates energy and information within and among us. Did you catch that last part? Among us. This suggests something profound. We are all connected. The mind isn't just within us. It's between us. We are linked by this shared energy, this collective process. And before you roll your eyes and think this sounds too far out there, keep in mind this is coming from mathematicians and neuroscientists. The mind, unlike the brain, isn't a physical object. It's energy. And energy moves, it transforms. It flows between people, creating connections that we might not always be aware of. You are not an isolated being. You are part of a larger, interconnected system. So, what does all of this mean for you? There are two big takeaways here. First, according to the latest thinking in mathematics, social science, and neuroscience, your mind is a self-organizing energy system that's connected to others. You belong to a collective, even if you sometimes feel isolated in your own life. Second, you have control over your brain. Your mind can change your brain structure. If you find yourself stuck in patterns you don't like, overeating, laziness, negativity, remember, your mind has the power to rewrite those patterns. With consistent effort, you can override the brain's automatic systems and create new, healthier habits. Today's session was a deep one, but we hope it's left you feeling empowered. Science can sometimes reveal truths that seem like they belong more in the realm of philosophy, but that's the beauty of it. Your mind versus your brain? There's no real contest. Your mind holds the reins.